Oh, wow. That was hot. So I'm Sarah Miller. I'm the Professional Development and Research Chair for the IAM Emerging Technologies Caucus. And I am introducing for you right now Mike Morrow, the CEO of CommandWear. And he's going to do our next mini talk, which is about wearable technology. So here you go, Mike.
Great, thanks, and good morning, everybody. I hope you had a fun night in Las Vegas last night. I'll try not to speak too loudly. How many of you are wearing a wearable? Show of hands. A few, okay, not surprising. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how we've deployed wearable technology over the last 2 years with first responders across North America. And just as background, I've spent the last 26 years now designing and deploying crisis management software. Focused a lot of my time working in emergency operations centers, but more recently in the field. And one of the reasons we launched CommandWear was to address a critical problem that I've seen time and time again in the field, and that is a lack of situational awareness to the last tactical mile, communication issues in the field. And that is why we're seeing great opportunities to apply wearable technology to help our first responders get home safely after their shift. Did anyone know that the first wearable computer was actually deployed right here in Las Vegas? I thought it would be interesting to share that with you. This was in 1961. Edward Thorpe, working with MIT, designed a wearable computer for his shoe. And he would sit at the roulette table in Vegas and tap the shoe to count the rotations of the roulette to try and beat the dealer. Did it work? No. But I guess a warning to you if you're at the roulette table, if you see anyone tapping their shoe, watch out. So wearables has come a long way very rapidly. It's iterating quickly. It started with a concept, Dick Tracy talking into the phone. It's evolved through many strange and wonderful devices that people have been trying out, and that's how we evolve things, is to test and experiment. But now there's 347 wearable devices in the market today, primarily consumer devices, as you know, the Fitbits and now the Apple Watch. It's primarily health that's starting to pick it up on the enterprise side. But we are now introducing it. We're one of the first companies to really bring it into the public safety sector, and I want to share some of the findings with you, good, bad, and ugly. You're probably aware, the Science and Technology Directorate at Department of Homeland Security's, their Next Generation First Responder APEX program is also studying the use of wearable technology and adapting it for public safety. So there's a lot of great work going on in innovation that DHS is leading as well, and I've been on some panels and participating in some of the conversation around this, and it's carrying on. So one of my first mistakes, when about 2.5 years ago I walked into a police department wearing these, and I almost got arrested. But the second thing was, I said, isn't this great? Look at this cool stuff. It's full Android on board. It's got GPS, can do vital monitoring, give you a display in the corner of your eye with all of your messages. You can stay hands-free. I just about got kicked out. I have 2 pages of objections because there's lots of issues with this. So what I did is very quickly regrouped and said, the problem is not necessarily the device, it's the solution. We have to focus on the platform first, because we're pulling data, sensor data, off all of these different devices. And how do you bring all that together into actionable intelligence to allow you to do your job more efficiently and safely? So we call it DNA. When we studied the problem, you have to, when you're deploying these systems, not just look at these cool new devices. How do they fit in the organization? What are they going to do for you? How are you going to connect them? The network is still the Achilles heel. It's a tough one. We're using a lot of cellular connection. There's tiny bits of data that still get through when the cellular networks are congested. So we've had a lot of success with cellular, but you may want some other backup communication capabilities that connect those wearable devices. And of course, the data needs to flow into your existing dispatch and crisis management software systems. It shouldn't just be, again, another standalone application. It needs to integrate. So the important lesson was we really needed to step back and look at the whole picture. Where we started was we looked at what are the key pain points, and we spoke with many, many police departments, paramedics, private security as well. And these were the 4 top common problems. Number 1, commanders in the field didn't know where the responders were in real time. As soon as they leave the vehicle, dispatch doesn't know where they are. They're relying on radio to communicate and locate. That ties up the radio channel with a lot of unnecessary communication. We can offload that now with real-time GPS tracking through the wearable devices. And the communication through radio is not always acknowledged. Now we can acknowledge by just pushing a button. So when somebody gets their message to their wrist, they can acknowledge they understood the message, they got it, and they're taking action. Commanders also didn't have a real-time visual in the field as to not only where their people are or where the incidents were, where are the risks and hazards. And these systems that are relied on, the dispatch radio systems, are not interoperable. Ongoing challenge is to enable interoperability. So those were the challenges that we addressed at CommandWear, and again leveraging wearable and mobile technology, smartphones. We did over a dozen live operational deployments over the last year and a half, roughly, and it started small. A great way to test this technology is through an exercise. It's low risk. It's a great way to just strap some of these onto a couple of people. All they have to do is they get a message, they push a button. So it's not distracting them in any way. It's then that data comes back to an operational tool to allow them to, sorry about that, allow them to manage things. So, we've deployed this through major events like Formula 1, football games, the Rock and Roll Marathon in San Diego recently. Paramedics loved it because now they know where their guys are when they're on the ground on bikes, the bike teams, foot patrol, when they're not in vehicles. So it worked extremely well. So I'm going to share the lessons with you now. And the first one is these smartwatches, Apple Watch. This is Pebble. Pebble Watch also comes, by the way, we're agnostic on hardware. We're not hardware manufacturers. We are just trying to find devices that work. These devices, though, were well liked, so it's a thumbs up, and they are used for text communications. Again, when the radio can't be heard in those loud environments, they're getting a message, and sometimes, they're carrying a smartphone like this. It's in a back pocket. You don't hear it. You don't feel that you got a message, but you do feel vibration on your wrist. And so that has been very effective for getting messages through and then push of a button to acknowledge. So simple is better, especially when it comes to wearables because of the form factor. It's very small display. This one's a little bit larger. This is a Samsung Gear S. Full computer on board, doesn't have to tether to your phone. It's got a micro SIM. This is the Dick Tracy watch. I can use it to make phone calls. Has GPS on board, etc. I'll talk about some of the problems with this, though. So there's both the devices that tether to your phone, your existing iPhone or Android phone, or the standalone watches. And you have to buy a micro SIM from your telecom company to make that work and connect. So simple is better. We are doing some work, especially with Apple Watch, for vital monitoring. So now Apple has that built in. It's another sensor to measure heartbeat. So we want to set thresholds to say if there's a heart rate spike or flat line, automatically alert the guys around that person, so because we know where they are and who's around them, and also back to dispatch or command center. So one of the downsides of this technology is we have a lot of big guys that have big fingers, and pushing the button sometimes gets tricky. So we've made it. We try to make the application work well, so you can push any button to get the response. So there's ways around it, but just be aware, like this wouldn't work if you're wearing gloves. It's touchscreen, so be careful on selecting those kinds of devices. Heads-up displays. again. In the bottom corner of my eye, I can see my messages. I've just got a command, and I can simply touch on the side here, and I'm now videotaping all of you here. Like a Google Glass, you've seen that as well. Google Glass suffered from a lot of things. Form factor was a big problem. The display was up here, and you had to kind of look up. That's not very acceptable for a lot of public safety responders. You need to be focused on the job at hand, right in front of you. This one's better because I can see things without actually looking at the screen. However, look at me. Do I look like a really approachable guy? I'm out there in the community walking around. I'm probably going to scare a few people, right? So as soon as you put something on the face, there are social implications as well. It is good for heads up, hands free. This one you still need to interact with the watch, but this one you don't necessarily have to do anything. You can get your messages and it's right there in front of you. So that's the good thing. But again, lenses. If you're like me, you wear glasses. When you get to a certain age, you need a little help, and some of these don't come with prescription lenses. They're not ballistic lenses, so they could. There's safety issues. They're getting better. They're also not transitional. So you're going to a dark environment. You want them to go light, right? So there are different lenses now. I will say that this kind of device is getting better and better. Motorola is doing a lot of work. This is one from Recon Instruments. It just bought out by Intel. Intel just bought the company, and Motorola is working with them. So I think by the end of 2016, you're going to see a lot more of these for special operations. I don't see it for day-to-day patrol at this point. Durability. So these things fall off, right? The watch doesn't fall off easily. So, and if it falls off, what about the data that's on board? If I've just taken that videotape, it's on here right now. We don't want that. That's evidence. That needs to be secured. So security is a huge issue, and I'm going to get to that next. Security and privacy. So now that we're putting computers on our bodies, there's some information like vitals that becomes pretty sensitive stuff, and you do need to look at your policies and procedures around securing that kind of data. The trend now is, maybe you've heard of BYOD, bring your own device. A lot of people bringing their smartphones into work and using them in work, so organizations are really struggling right now with how do we manage and secure that data. Well, now they're also going to have this coming in. You also need to look at how do you secure the information on this device. So there's lots of mobile data management tools available on the market. Happy to discuss those with you. And those allow you to control what applications, what data is going to be on this device, secured, and I can even remotely wipe the data if it gets stolen or it's misplaced, what have you. Shut it down. And then location tracking is a big deal. So one of the first objections in that police department I approached was the union. And they were saying, okay, you're tracking our team. Well, we got an issue with that around privacy. And when we explained what we were doing, and this is about safety, this is about knowing where people are to protect them, not also operational efficiencies, yes, but it's really about safety at the end of the day. Once they understood that, everyone I've spoken with are fine with it. We also give people the ability to turn off the tracking if they need to. So we empower the user to turn off tracking. If your policies say no, I don't want anyone turning off tracking, you can lock it down and from a central console determine who's going to be tracked and who isn't, and within what geographic area. So different ways to implement this kind of location tracking. Durability. This is the #1 challenge in wearables. This is great. Some of the technology caucus people have been running around for the last 18 hours with this Pebble watch. It's tethered to a phone, big battery on that phone, but this is lasting, we're just about half battery use on this after 18 hours of constant use and lots of interaction. This device, we're running GPS every 10 to 15 seconds, this will last 2 hours, the battery. So it's not acceptable. So what we're doing is testing these devices, and our minimum threshold is 12 hours. We need a 12-hour battery usage on these devices, otherwise it won't get certified by us. You also want to make sure that these devices are IP65, intrusion protection 65 certified. So they're semi-waterproof and dust-proof, of course. Otherwise, you're going to have big problems. Like I said, some of them also come in steel casing, so they're quite rugged. Connectivity. We talked about this already. 2 options. One is Bluetooth. That works, especially for saving battery life. Using the radio on board these things, it just kills the battery. So if you got heavy usage, right now, state of the art is it's tough to get the 12-hour shift with a standalone smartwatch. You really need to look at the tethered watches at this point. And form factor, yes, size matters. We've dealt with some pretty big people, and it's not only, there's lots of body types, so once you start putting things on people's bodies, including their wrists, I've had some police officers, I couldn't get this around the wrist. So obviously those are some ergonomic factors that have to be considered beyond the technology thoughts. And a real key one here, I already alluded to this, there's lots of sensor data being collected, whether it's location, current status, heart rate, messages, picture video sharing we're doing as well. You can take pictures and video from these devices. How are you going to integrate all of that data in a meaningful way and then store it securely and share it to your back-end systems? So again, just encourage you to look at the whole picture. I'm sure most of you have been burnt before on some technology that maybe you didn't look at the whole picture end to end. This wearable stuff is really going to force the questions pretty quickly. So the future, very, very interesting future coming. I'm not going to get into some of the wearables that are going under your skin, or tattoos and all of that stuff. That's out there. The reality is, next year even, there's going to be a lot more applications around actionable applications with these devices. So now that I know where you are and I know where the hazards are, why not automatically alert you when you move into a hazardous material area? Because we know we've got sensors to detect hazmat. And or some of you may know about this shot spotter technology. If there's a gunshot in your municipality, immediately knowing who's in that area to respond, who's closest, and or who should be out of that area. Those are things that could be automated, those processes, to speed up our response at the end of the day to save lives. Connecting. Mesh networks. Many of you probably heard of mesh networking. So, and with new 5G LTE standards, the smartphones will be able to talk directly without a cellular connection. I don't know if there's any telcos in the room, but they don't like me talking about this, but that's what's coming. They will be able to connect and communicate, and that's the same with the smart watches and so on. They'll be able to communicate directly, and that's going to solve a huge, huge problem with communications. So it's a little ways out. That's a 5G standard. It hasn't been implemented yet, but be aware of it. Indoor tracking. I get this question all the time. Great, I can track myself. We're getting decent GPS in the building here, and we're tracking everybody, but indoors is a problem still. When you go downstairs, you're in a stadium, it's a major event, you're going to lose GPS. One way around this we've dealt with in the short term is to indicate in the software who you've lost and for how long in terms of GPS. So at least you have an indication of how accurate the data is that you're looking at. So that's an easy fix. There's technology like Wi-Fi triangulation. We can map out the indoors inside of buildings, and if we know where the Wi-Fi access points are, we can start to do triangulation off those Wi-Fi access points to roughly locate people in buildings. So that's a technology that can be used. And iBeacons. You familiar with iBeacons? No? This is a Bluetooth device. You can get these little $20, they're like a little puck. You drop them as you walk into a building. You have to drop them about, I think it's every 30 feet or so, maybe 25 feet. And those set up a triangulation, and they communicate with your smart device to locate you that way. So it's an ad hoc indoor tracking solution, and we're doing some testing around that. So it's coming. And again, to make the responder protected, connected, and situationally aware, we need those contextualized alerts. I talked about the vital monitoring. I think that's going to be a key application to keep people safe in those dangerous situations. We want to know how they're doing. Also, a lot of sensors are being built into shirts now. You may be aware of that. Some of them are on the market. They're primarily focused at athletes, but they're doing vital monitoring through sensors that are built into the cloth, and they've got circuitry in them. So, it's not unreasonable to think that there will also be some of these sensors that are in this device right in your clothing. And that's already happening. Streaming of audio and video is also a real key to keeping people safe and better situational awareness. Back to command. So right now, and of course you need bandwidth, you need network to do this, but we're doing a store and forward. We're taking pictures and video in the field, 15-second video shot or a picture or two from the front line, and then as soon as you save it, it pushes it off the device back to the main database and displayed to command. And that's good enough. The real-time stuff is great, but you do need more network. That kind of picture I do on there can be compressed, and it'll retry even in really dicey connectivity situations. It still gets through. So we continue to learn by actually field deploying this technology, and that's the best way to see what works and what doesn't work. And so far, this is a real winner, this kind of technology. And it's practical, it's low cost. This is again, I'm not selling Pebble or Apple Watch. This one's about $100. And the ruggedized version, I think, is $150 or so. Obviously, the Apple Watch is a little bit more money and more consumer grade. But there are devices. The prices are coming down as they're getting more use. And what we're doing is just adapting that consumer device, ensuring that it's rugged enough and it's going to work for the responder at the end of the day. Again, it's about safety, and it's about helping you do a better job. Any questions? No questions? How many are going to rush out and buy a wearable now? Oh, good. 2. Great. I'm not selling them. But happy to talk with you more about, there's a lot more devices and things that we've tested, and I'm happy to discuss that with you later. So thank you for your attention.
And thank you so much, Mike, for joining us today. We loved having this audience here. We have a large variety of these micro talks that will be happening at this booth during every MX break. The next one is on wireless information systems for emergency responders looking at hazmat situations. So please come join us at lunch, learn a little bit about that. Everything is being live streamed on Periscope. This is the booth that's not trying to sell you anything. We're here to answer questions, to talk to you about technology, social media, anything you have. We're one of the caucuses of the IAEM, and we'll be having our meeting this afternoon. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.